Good evening and welcome to our special edition of POLOTIKI, brought to you by News 24. It's day 4 of the National Elective Conference of the ANC, and the battle for Nasrec is continuing. Still, the missing votes, 63 or 68, but somewhere the leaders are quabbling and fighting it out over what should happen to these quarantined vote, as we have heard from some of the leaders. Of course, we're going to be talking about it here on POLOTIKI, and I'm going to be joined by our editor, Adrian Basson, and also our resident analyst, Ralph Mateja. It's been a long day, but finally we also did get to hear from the new president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, who earlier on was doing a walkabout that of course caused all sorts of other controversies, but we'll get into all of that a little bit later. Let's start off this show by just listening to the new president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa. Can we listen?
Had said that this conference was going to collapse, this conference was not going to go on, and we've proven once again, maybe for the millionth time in our 105 years history of existence, that the ANC is able to rise even above its own strength. And here we were able to demonstrate that the ANC family, this great organization of our people, wants to emerge out of this conference united, renewed, and stronger than it was when we came to conference. We've now elected the top 6 leadership of the organization, and all of us are humbled, deeply humbled to have been invested with this confidence by the delegates of our movement who are attending the conference, who are representing the nearly 1 million members of the ANC who are rooted in the communities where our people live. So the 6 of us are really humbled to have been given this opportunity to serve our people. And we will serve our people with great distinction, with humility, and we will keep to the task that we've been given. Our conference is going so
President Cyril Ramaphosa, first time we're hearing from him since he was elected yesterday, putting up a brave face, saying that Adrian, you know, the success of this conference, but we know we are nowhere near that mark of calling it a success. There is this issue of this votes.
Yes, no, Ramaphosa trying to put up a brave face, as you say, trying to preach unity, which has really become the theme of this conference. Even the song, the big song here, is called Unity. But yeah, there's lots of problems under the surface, you know, and also, you know, you must remember he only got 51% of the vote, you know, so there's a lot of people who didn't vote for him. And the big issue tonight, undisputedly, is the 63 or 68 votes that are missing. That Senzo Mkhunu, from KwaZulu-Natal, who ran as Secretary General for Ramaphosa, thinks could turn the tables in his favor for the position of Secretary General. Because remember, Esma Gashule won that position by 24 votes, which means Senzo needs to take away just 13 of that 24 votes to actually emerge. 13 votes, this is what it comes down to. And I think there's going to be long fights into the night and even into tomorrow over this vote.
But I think we need to just explain to viewers a little bit more, because there is a lot of confusion out there about what exactly are we talking about when we're talking about these disputed votes, Adrian.
Yes. Look, there's even confusion with us, so let's try and unpack what we've heard so far, and we try to speak as much people as possible. The ANC has not given us a formal briefing on this matter, so all the information we have is what we get from our sources, from phoning people all over the country. What we know is that there's an amount of votes where people actually came to the voting station with their tags, with their ID books, but their names were not found on the voters' roll. There was a voters' roll with the legitimate voters, and that excluded all the people who were disqualified by the various court cases. These people, some say 63, others say 68, then were allowed to vote, but their votes were kept separately to check later why their names weren't on the list. Ultimately, the results that we heard did not include that 63. So somewhere a decision was made to exclude those between 63 and 68 votes from the final tally. What Senzo Mkhunu and his supporters are now saying is, you've never explained to us why a steering committee, people like Jesse Duarte being implicated of, sitting there telling that they will resolve this matter, but never explaining to plenary why they excluded that vote. What we know for a fact is there were 60 plus people who voted, whose names weren't on the voting roll, and whose votes weren't counted in the final tally. The reason why it wasn't counted is still unknown.
It's still unknown, as others are saying that they were disqualified and refused to bring back the tags. Others are saying, as we've heard from the Limpopo chairperson in other interviews, saying that these were people that were legitimately here at the conference. Is this conference under threat, Ralph?
You know, Mahlatsi, what we're talking about this 63 votes, it's a technical issue. Technical issues can be resolved. You can actually maybe arrive at a consensus on a technical issue. You can look at what the Electoral Act says about votes that need to be quarantined, and what it says, do you need to bring them in later when you tally them with others? Do you need to count others or as you are bringing in those other votes? What is the procedure? That is something that can be resolved. I don't think that the bone of contention here is actually the technicalities. I think that this conference, the period leading to this conference has been characterized by tensions, have been characterized by court actions and so forth. And my view is that this conference, it is just a bigger branch meeting. Think of it as a branch meeting involving all members. The same attitude regarding suspicion is there. Remember, when the conference started, the process of electing those leaders, when the electoral commission that is responsible here, the electoral body that has been appointed to handle this, when it took to the podium, there have been disputes to a point where even the chair within the ANC was even referred to in disparaging terms. I quote, someone said, Lomkulu must sit down, the old man must just sit down. The old man indeed, it is Cindy, I think in Fenyane there, he actually at some point threw his hands. It showed that there has always been a suspicion, there's always been a high level of mistrust among the delegation, and it reflects what is happening within the two factions of the ANC. So it is actually not a surprise, because the process of starting, the whole thing of starting, it took 2 hours. We waited, and they were back and forth and so forth until they started. Even the announcement of the whole thing, it looks to me that there was already you are behind the scenes contestations before the whole thing, before the announcement could actually be made. So there are technical issues. The issue here, the question is not going to be resolved technically. There need to be a political solution to this conference, and I think members of ANC, senior members of ANC, need to be able to work out a political solution. I know it is unthinkable, because if there was an appetite for a political solution, we would have seen it at the branch level and so forth. Most of the problems that emerged at branch level, the nomination process, the process of electing delegation, most of them were resolved in court. It shows that members of ANC have veered far from consensus. It's a winner takes all, and the fact that the margins are close gives them, those who are dissatisfied, they see good ground to actually challenge these processes.
Political solutions seem so difficult at this moment, because earlier on we had Supra Humapelo from the Northwest saying, if there's even a recount, or if those votes are actually included, we will push that there must be the whole top 6, the voting must start all over again. How do they find each other?
So, Mahlatsi, some of the stories we're hearing from behind the scenes at this stage is that the Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma camp are feeling very strongly about this. They don't want that 63 votes to be counted with the rest, and they are threatening to call for a re-vote, not even a recount, a re-vote of the entire conference. That, I think, has a real threat to collapse this conference. But let's just look at the numbers again. You know, what Senzo Mkhunu say, and one must have a bit of sympathy for him. The guy lost out with 24 votes, you know, to become the Secretary General in the ANC. That is effectively the CEO of the ANC. If the ANC was a company, that was the CEO. That's the guy who runs the Thuli House, who must make sure the ANC wins the 2019 election. So it's not a small thing, you know, and this is where Cyril Ramaphosa is between a rock and a hard place, because he has to preach this message of unity. So he has to put up a brave face. He has to say, look, the slates collapsed in the final results. We are, 3 from each slate made it finally onto the top 6. But at the same time, he knows in his heart that Mkhunu may have been done in by these votes being excluded. I think that there's a political solution being tried to craft it here, but I don't know if Mkhunu and his supporters will fall for that.
I mean,
They've already gone to court in
Yeah,
KZN.
yeah.
And we saw what happened there. It had a massive impact on conference. Why can't they go to court again? We know former ANC President Jacob Zuma has preached against ANC members going to court. But if you were in his shoes, if this had happened to you, and there's absolute no legitimate reason given to anyone at this stage why those votes were included. Did anyone go to check the voters' roll to see who they were?
Yeah,
It's an
yeah.
easy exercise.
Yeah.
you
And
know?
you can
Technically
literally,
can be cleared.
if you think about it, you can actually check these things, because if a branch is actually qualified, there were signatures of those who attended the branch meetings. There were signatures to say that we chose Mahlatse to be our delegate from branch 51. So let's check and correspond. So that's where it's difficult to say, why is it taking so long? By around 10 o'clock, we were breaking the story that, the steering committee is meeting, but till this moment, nothing from the ANC.
I mean, they could resolve it technically, Mahlatse, but I think that there are deep-seated issues, and of course, the problem began far back. It began with the branches, it began at the regional level. But I think there is something also very interesting that I think needs to be noted here. The war of misinformation. I mean, I was driving here in the morning. I stopped on the other side of this conference where, we are not allowed to talk to the delegation here. And some of them come from our community. Some of them, we know them. We are not allowed. I mean, as I was driving on the highway, I see a bus from Limpopo and so forth. I was trying to check to see, can I see somebody and just say hi? But we got here, and then I was on the other side. Some of the delegation came to me. I didn't go to anyone. I was just trying to get my coffee. Came to me. Someone from Eastern Cape was saying that, Ralph, there is this problem. We want a complete recount on that thing. It was much earlier in the morning. Very interesting. And that person actually then says to me, Mahlatse, that, you know what, we think that some people have been deployed here to push misinformation and so forth, because they're alleging that some of the individuals have had information
leaders,
much earlier. I don't want to name some of the senior people, but the names are being peddled that this person seems to have been deployed, have been peddling misinformation. And I think if you look at this thing, since the voting started and the results were out, we've received different numbers altogether. We were thinking that it's going to be wide, but when it came up, it came very close. ANC members are involved in misinformation against each other. The other campaign, the other camp, and both camps, they are involved in this. That is what makes the whole thing very difficult, because they are throwing all this information. We don't know now, there are 68 missing votes and so forth. There are certain 63 people or whatsoever who have been prohibited from voting and so forth. The whole thing of maybe fake news within the ANC and so forth makes the whole thing very complex, and I think it increases the deadlock, because members, the factions, also seek sympathies in the manner in which this story is covered in the media.
Of course, we're expecting this to continue to be a big story, Adrian. I mean, and time is running out. I mean, the conference should be ending tomorrow, and I think all of us would like to see it end. And if it comes to plenary tomorrow very late, we can see or find ourselves here for a very, very long time, because it doesn't sound like it will be an easy debate if it comes to plenary.
And my understanding is limited because we don't have information, but how is plenary going to resolve this matter, with all due respect?
With the howling that happens in there.
You know, if 5,000 people have to debate this matter, it's going to take months, so it's unclear at this stage what the plan is. Mahlatse, my expectation is very much that we will see court action. I do think someone will go to court on this.
Of course, we've heard that Senzo Mkhunu might be seeing lawyers already and preparing for a court challenge, but we will continue to work those stories to confirm it for you. Implications for Cyril Ramaphosa if there is a dispute around the Secretary General. What does that say for him?
I think that, ironically, This offers Mr. Ramaphosa an opportunity to demonstrate that he can actually convince people. It has been said that he's a negotiator and so forth. Let's see if he can negotiate a way out of this. He has been talking about unity. He knows, as you correctly stated, that there are deep rifts. Is it possible that Mr. Ramaphosa can work out a deal here, can work out a solution here? Maybe he can invoke the spirit of 1992, the spirit of constitutional negotiations. Maybe he can bring it here. But the problem is that the longer these problems stay, instead of the length of time allowing people to be calmer, the longer it stays, the more they hatch strategies that actually pushes them far from a consensus. It's quite sad that NC members have got to a point where they are just so committed to disagree with each other.
But some would say that this is, if there's a battle to be had, this one is a battle to be had, even for Cyril, because he would sleep much more comfortably at night if he had Senzo Mchunu in the Secretary General office.
Absolutely. I think, and let me make an analogy here with the Polokwane conference, you know. President Jacob Zuma, during his entire term, had one case as a monkey on his back, and that was the spy tapes. Why? Because it was never resolved properly in a factual way with a court of law. That's why it stuck with him for 10 years. I want to say tonight that I do think that this case, this 63 votes, may become the monkey on Cyril Ramaphosa's back if this thing is not resolved. Because people will continue, this will go to court, it will go to the Supreme Court of Appeal, it will go to the Constitutional Court if it's not resolved here. A political solution in fear of a recount or a revote is simply not good enough.
Yeah.
I think we're going to need something, something different here. And I'm sure ANC delegates will also want to see that kind of transparency, specifically, obviously, the camp who lost out on that position.
Of course, but we will continue talking about this issue. The other big story of the day, you know, it's been a difficult time here at Nasrec. Tension-filled with security very, very tight. We started talking about it this morning, how, you know, the security arrangements had changed at when you entered the Nasrec Center. But a particularly disturbing incident today when Sam Kokeli, a Bloomberg journalist, was manhandled by security officials, not even just security official, a very senior member of the security. But we're going to be talking to them, to Adrian Basson and Ralph Mateja, a little bit about that. First, let's hear from Sam Kokeli about his experience.
Question, where am I going?
No, but you can't just throw someone
No,
out.
where am I going? What are you doing? Don't do that. What are you doing? You cannot do that. I'm not threatening you. What are you doing? You cannot do that.
No, we
Yes, yes.
We waited for a press conference that was going to be addressed, Mr. Ramaphosa coming to address us. And we waited for almost an hour in a baking sun, and some of us got tired of waiting, and we wanted to walk back to our working station, which is about a 200-meter walk, and security couldn't escort us back because that was the arrangement. We can't walk freely. You can't go anywhere without asking security to take you. So as we were talking and finding ways and suggesting to them if they could please escort us back, and the security, one of the senior security officials came to me and said, I was starting anarchy, and he was going to arrest me, and he was going to take my security, my accreditation tag, and I offered it to him, and he said I must follow him around, and he pushed me out of the precinct altogether, manhandled, assaulted me out of the precinct. Yeah, certainly. I mean, firstly, the fence that has been erected to prevent journalists from talking to delegates and walking around freely sends definitely a message about the atmosphere. They're seeing us as the barbarians at the gate who have to be kept out. And when we get allowed in for a couple of minutes in plenary, we can't even take pictures of the hawkers lined up as we walk into the building where the main events are taking place. And once we get there are no chairs for us. We have to scrum around, push around, sitting on the floor and fighting for space as reporters with photographers. It's really not the ideal environment for us to operate. And if you happen to take a picture they don't like, they will tell you to delete it, and it's happened to a whole lot of people. So this is not about Sam Kokeli, it is about our media freedom, it's about us not being seen as a nuisance. As the officials from security department have told us, they're not going to listen to civilians and journalists. They know nothing about democracy, as one journalist and one security guy said. To one of us said, I know nothing about democracy, I'm here only for security. No, I haven't had an opportunity, but I'm talking to my colleagues at SANEF. They are arranging a meeting to talk to the ANC, not just about me, but the whole lot, the environment broadly. We want to be able to tell South Africans what the ruling party is up to, and we have been invited to PA. It's definitely our right to walk around and do the stories we want to do. I've asked what crime there is and what laws are being applied, and I haven't been told that. So I don't know what exactly is going on.
That
We
was
waited for a
Bloomberg,
press conference.
journalist Sam Kokelian. Of course, he's also the chair of SANEV's Media Freedom Subcommittee. Ralph, it's been quite difficult for all of us in terms of the rules of the ANC. But, I mean, clearly insisting that it's not just about what happened to him, but we've had all kinds of reports from other journalists, footage being deleted, women journalists complaining that when they want to confirm accreditation, the marshals are touching them inappropriately. We've had a journalist punched, we've had journalists shoved, but we know that there's this, you know, should we call it a little jail that has been created by the ANC for us? You know, what do you make of all of the security arrangements?
It's quite a concern. Since the policy conference, we have seen this where you do have a very clear boundary being laid between the delegation, members of the ANC, and the media. And, you know, I think in this conference, they've even taken it too far. I mean, for the first time in my life, Matlati, I felt like a VIP being escorted by the security from the plenary about 200 meters for that matter. What is it that one could do within 200 meters?
You could say hello to a delegate. I mean, that's even a crime.
Matlati, these delegates come from within our community. The ANC does not live in Mars or in any other place. The delegates come from within our community. And I don't think it creates a good impression to create that kind of a wall. The sad part about the manner in which the ANC organized this is that when ANC members want to report something, the media has to jump and be there. When ANC members feel there is a perspective that they need to put out there, the media has to jump and be there. It is like a privilege to have to report on the ANC. It is unfair. We all live within the same society. If the ANC thinks that it is badly reported upon, there are vehicles through which complaints can be laid. And I think that the impression that is being created within this, it's like the ANC does not have a problem. The problem is how it is being reported upon. And I think that is very unfair.
And the irony of it all is that really, in this age of technology, how do you actually stop reporters from doing their work? I mean, people are WhatsApping, people are SMSing, people are calling, conversations are happening with delegates. That's how we're getting the stories out there.
Matlati, I can just presume here, and again, I have not verified this. I think there are so many WhatsApp groups within the ANC going on there. Some of us, we get added here and there, get deleted this information. We live in the age of communication, and the best thing that the party need to do in dealing with this, polish your communication machinery. That's all. Let's communicate. Polish your communication machinery. If you think that you are badly reflected upon, follow those processes and talk to your communication people. It cannot be that the only time you get to report is when the party is actually happy about what they think is likely to come out of that. It creates a mentality that says that the party is under siege from the media, from journalists. And I think that is not true, because ANC members live among us. They live among the communities, and we have to report about the party.
We have to definitely report about the party. It has really, really been difficult. I mean, we were joking about how my colleague Lisa Katandwa was trying to say hello to a relative from the Eastern Cape through the fence, and you know, they couldn't even touch. Already security was upon them to say, no, that is not allowed. And you know, the issue is about the ANC seems to not have a strategy in terms of responding on its own challenges, because journalists are basically reporting what the challenges for the ANC are.
Exactly. And I find it very demeaning for ANC members, for general ANC members, because if the top leadership of the party does not trust that members can air views about their own party. I mean, this is just sad that you bring in delegation, you cage them, you put them in a bus, you patrol them and everything. You want to quarantine them from society, and the only way you can do that, maybe it is the belief that they cannot stand. You are not allowing them to talk. And I've met brilliant ANC members who make an argument, who can make their case, who can hold their own regarding the position of the party. Why do you need to quarantine them? They need to interact as well. And actually, by the way, a lot of NC members talk to us. They ask us about our ideas, what do we think about the organization.
Yeah.
And in all fairness, we say to them, we think here and there, and everything else. We need to continue
And
the
sometimes
conversation.
actually you were influenced. I'm going to put somebody on the spot. We were going to talk to her about what happened in this election in terms of the women vote. But since you are here, you are spokesperson of the Eastern Cape, so you are part of the communication machinery of the ANC.
And no one dragged her here. No one dragged her here.
Stella and David Abrams, thank you for joining us on Polotiki. Do you want to weigh in there?
Yes, I'm listening to your argument, especially Ralph. Well, let me just explain one thing. As the ANC, we are one organization that believes that media must be given its space to operate. Hence, if you go through all our policies, we're very clear about what must happen. But then when it comes to the message that must be carried out, definitely in each and every organization, including your own stock file that you belong to, there are people that are assigned responsibilities, that this is your responsibility because of your capabilities. Because as much as we say people can express themselves, but it's about the party, it's not like people talking about themselves. They're talking about the organization that they're belonging to. But at times, they read a newspaper, Ralph. They think it's authentic, the information that is there. Only to discover that 3 months or 3 weeks down the line, the newspaper issues an erratum. We apologize, and that person has already made a point because he or she thought that information is factual.
But this is a conference of delegates. It's the ANC that reminds us all the time. This is a gathering of delegates. The NEC members, minister this, all of those things are supposed to go out of the window. When they actually stand there on the floor, everybody is equal. Why is it that those people who own this conference cannot speak to the media about how they feel, why this conference is important to them, what they want to come out of this conference?
It's not a matter of we don't want them to speak to media, but it's what about they are going to speak about in the media? Because like we are saying, it's the delegates conference, but it's an ANC conference. When they come here, like I said, they don't come to discuss their personal issues. They're here to discuss ANC policies. There are other internal issues that we don't want the public to know about before we consolidate on them. Like I said, it's different people with different ideas. When they come together, one tends to believe that his view is better than the other, and therefore they will put that as a fact. Now, do you want to confuse the society by sending different messages? Or, as a party that has been there, you are saying, let's have our discussions robustly so, but when we have come to an outcome, we all agree to say, this is what you agree on. Definitely in the ANC, what you agree on is what has been agreed upon by the majority. Therefore, that's what gets to be communicated, the outcome of the meeting, not the discussion.
I'm going to agree to disagree, Ralph. I think you're also laughing there. We will agree to disagree on this one. I think transparency.
But isn't that nice? Wouldn't it be
openness?
nice to just walk through and agree to disagree with a delegate? Isn't that interesting for democracy?
But you know, let's talk about what we called you in there for. I mean, one of the big stories of this conference is the blow for women. I mean, we only have one person, one woman in the top 6 in the name of Jessie Duarte as the Deputy Secretary General. I mean, you are part of the young women leadership of the ANC. Your reaction to that?
Well, let me say we are disappointed simply because even though we wanted President Cyril Ramaphosa to be president as the male, but we were clear that there's a need for the balance. Hence, we nominated to Comrade Lindiwe Sisulu. We're banking on the fact that we will have other women supporting her, because as you know that our counterparts, our leagues have been saying this is the time that women must take charge. Therefore, we're like, we know if we are then supporting a woman, all women will gather together and support her. But unfortunately, as I said earlier, this is the role of majority. And therefore, if the majority has ruled, there's nothing we can do. We had fielded the candidate, but unfortunately, she could not make it. We are disappointed, but we are hoping to correct that with the entire 80 NEC delegation that is coming to say, let's make sure that at least not less than 55% of the people that will be elected in the coming election, that will be women.
Are you not doing it the wrong way round, if I can use those words? I mean, first of all, you look at even at lower level, regional chairpersons, regional secretaries, provincial chairpersons, it's an all-boys club of the ANC. Should we not, as the women in the party, be pushing for women to be in those positions? Currently, we don't even have a premier who's a woman.
Well, let me agree with you. You're not correct, though, to
Okay.
say we don't have
Well,
a
one.
premier who's
You've
a
got
woman.
one in the Northern
We've got
Cape,
one in the
Sylvia,
Northern
yeah.
Cape, yes. Yes, you are correct to say it's a concern also. You are correct to say we have a responsibility to start from those lower structures. Hence, from, you know, this is a conference. We are two sides for now because they're still voting. Therefore, the reason why we said we must put a woman as a deputy, because we wanted to make sure that by the time the president leaves, the deputy takes over, so that we're able to introduce it to say, let's go with the branch level. Let's go with the sub-regional, the regional and all that. That's why we're taking the battle. That's why we did not compromise. Even after the announcement of the results, we had to call all our delegation to say something is not right. We couldn't have voted. If Cyril has made it, how come Comrade Lindo has not made it? But of course, you know, male dominate in politics. Therefore, they support each other. That's the difference between men and ourselves. Men always rally together. It's about them. Of course, they do, because there are those men that support women genuinely and their struggles. But there are those that still belong to the age, to the old age, that will say we can't be led by women.
You're not part of the Women's League, obviously. I am correct?
You are correct.
I am correct. But one of the things, I mean, we use that as a measure because it is the one structure that is the vehicle for women in the party. And one of the things that always, you know, that I notice is the fact that, you know, they're old. You know, they don't seem to manage to attract the likes of you, the young women of the ANC. And that's where the gap is. How do you think the party is doing enough to attract young, probably black middle class professional women into its structures?
Actually, they are trying to reach out to young women. We must applaud the Women's League for that. They've established a young women's desk. Then, in terms of the actual programs, if they do talk to young women out there, I'm not sure, because as I said earlier, I don't participate unless it's bigger programs. I'm not a member. I only subscribe in terms of membership, but I'm not an active member. I do know that there's a youth desk, as I said, what we refer to as Ama Younger. That's a program that is out there to recruit young women, not just those that are from underprivileged, everybody that identifies with ANC policies. We are saying this is an opportunity because it's important that we build women at that tender age. I might have been very fortunate that I grew up in the Youth League, but not everybody goes to the Youth League, which is the difference, because I would have a good background, because the Youth League is a school that taught me the ANC politics. Therefore, when I come to the ANC, it makes things easier. Unlike an ordinary woman who just comes to the ANC who does not have that background. That's why we had to support the Young Women's Desk.
Ralph, just to bring you in there, I mean, where did it go wrong? You know, there were two camps, yes. One proposed a president, the other proposed a deputy president for a woman. Neither made it.
You know, I heard that there was a report that one of the problems why the NC Women's League cannot attract young women is because even their attire is like that. That's what I heard. I mean, that they need to work on the fashion. I mean, really also. Not to say that women have to be identified by uniform or what they wear, but you know what I mean. On a more serious note, I think in this elective conference, factionalism is the most predominant issue. I think that what needs to happen is that women need to resist factionalism, particularly if it's not in line with gender. It's not in line with gender parity. The problem is that if you look at the gender ticket that came about here, and correct me, what I've seen in this gender ticket is that even within the ANC Women's League, some women were complaining that there has never even been a democratic process as to who is the rightful bearer of the torch for women. The decision that Menkosana Dlamini Zuma is going to carry that gender ticket, which was not very strong, I think it has been very questioned within the party. There were some who actually, Balekambete, the chairperson, Balekambete, said that she did not even have a conversation with Dlamini Zuma around this. I mean, how on earth a woman managed to get a conversation with a man about the leadership of a man? Because it appears that when she endorsed that Ramaphosa has had a conversation with Mebalekambete, while the same women couldn't have a conversation with the women about how their campaign or their position could actually enhance the position of women. My view is very clear to ANC, to women within ANC, not necessarily women's league, because women within the ANC are not women's league. I think that they need to fight hard. They need to fight the boys club. They need to tell those who are driving this boys club that, look, we are not going to fall for this. What we want is to make sure that women are properly represented. There need to be a quota on the premier. That is what I believe in. You cannot have a party that has got such large number of women and not even a single provincial chair. And you need to make sure that there is a quota on provincial chairs. They have to go for quota. I'm a firm believer in affirmative action if it's done properly. I'm a firm believer in a quota, and I think that the ANC need to think about the quota about women. Perhaps maybe one of the reasons why this party is in paralysis is the exclusion of women.
You want to add something there?
I would definitely like to add that, because he mentioned something that is very important, that we must introduce the quota system. We do have the 50-50 policy in the ANC, and I'm sure you have noticed in the previous term that we had tried to get a balance. We had 4 female premiers, but then the thing is, the constitution of the ANC is very clear in terms of its rules, majority rule. Therefore, if the delegates, when they went there in the nominations, they were dominated by males, therefore it is men that become to be chosen. And that becomes a problem. But you are correct to say we have a responsibility as women to make sure that we empower each other and provide. Because men, they don't do anything except provide themselves. That includes Googling information. And most women at times are very lazy to read. But all I always tell our women is that be bold in what you know. Be bold about asking in what you don't know, so that you can become a better person. But yes, we are committed to make sure that that is addressed. That is a challenge today.
I must use this opportunity having you here. What has been the reaction from the Eastern Cape in terms of the top 6 that has emerged?
Definitely, we were shocked at first because, like I said, we had our own people that we've nominated. But we were happy at the same time that, thanks God, that we've been talking about unity of the ANC, and the delegates have decided to take their power back to themselves. And this is why we have this outcome.
And do you think that this is the future for the ANC? They will be able to rebuild the ANC?
We know that the organization cannot be rebuilt by the officials. We are banking on the election of the additionals that are coming, the other 80 members. Therefore, we believe that in the collective that we have nominated now and voted for, they are the ones that will help the entire NEC to take the ANC forward.
Of course, the news that we've got now is that the ballot paper has been corrected and voting has resumed, and the delegates have been informed that they must continue going to the voting stations so that they can vote for the National Executive Committee. This, of course, is what we had heard earlier, that there were duplicate names on those ballots. It is quite an exhaustive one because a lot of people are nominated, but only 80 will actually make it to the National Executive Committee. It's a serious battle for the NEC. Yes, there was the battle for the top 6, but it's a serious battle for the National Executive Committee. I mean, people in Ramaphosa's camp have said, look, it's neutralized in the top 6, it's 3 per side, but he needs a National Executive Committee that can be able to support him in his decisions. Key things about whether President Jacob Zuma is recalled, the NEC will have to make those decisions. Key things about the relationship between the ANC and the ANC in government, the ANC at Luthuli House and the ANC in government will have to be decided in that National Executive Committee. So the battle for Nasrec continues here, but we've unfortunately ran out of time here for our special edition of Polotiki, brought to you by News 24. My guest was Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, who's the spokesperson for the ANC in the Eastern Cape, our resident analyst, Ralph Mateja, always with us, and thank you very much. And my name is Mahlatse Mahlase.